Good afternoon. My name is Niko House, host of the political radio show Mikasa Sukasa, and I urge you all to join our One Follow, $1 campaign when we show the mainstream media that we do not need them anymore. Just donate $1 to our Patreon account, which is listed below. Also, click the notification button, the little bell beside the subscription button. While you're at it, go ahead and click the subscription button. Now, a couple of days ago, I told you all that I was going to embark on a new path for the channel. Now, of course, we're still going to be covering breaking news, but I did say I wanted to take a philosophical and analytical standpoint and deal with some contentious issues on both sides of the fence, because I think that in order for us to move forward, there really needs to be this understanding that that we're all on the same side for the most part. There are some people who just truly have hate in their heart, but I don't believe that is the majority. I think some of us are misinformed. I think some of us have had facts misrepresented, and I think that if we are willing to have an open and honest discussion about a lot of these issues, then there's a good chance that going forward in the next 10 to 15 years, these are issues that our kids won't have to deal with. Of course, they'll likely have a different set of issues, but at least these won't be the ones that they have to deal with. But I don't like shutting out conversation. I don't like discouraging dialogue. I don't like blaming a huge issue on just one or two factors, because oftentimes there are several factors that are involved. One of these discussions that I think absolutely has to be had, especially given the climate of the situation, is one Colin Kaepernick. Now, before I begin this discussion, I want everyone, black and white, rich or poor, just forget about your personal identity. Forget everything you know, and just listen to the facts, listen to the history, and then render your judgment there. And I ask, of course, you're all free to do as you please, but I ask in the comment section, let's not be hateful and demeaning and denigrate anyone because of their own personal opinion. Now, if you're going to say a hateful opinion, don't be surprised if you get a hateful response. But I would rather keep it, have a civil discussion in the comment section so we can really just kind of understand where we're all coming from. With Colin Kaepernick, for a lot of people have asked me, where do you stand in the Colin Kaepernick situation? The truth of the matter is, I do totally support Colin Kaepernick. I think that anyone who thinks that Colin Kaepernick, there's a lot of narratives that are floating about, and all of them have been thoroughly debunked, but some people just haven't either seen the right video or haven't looked at the right statistics or things like that. Obviously, the conversation has been one that has been continuous from 2016 all the way into 2017, and even obviously some of 2015. However, recently the conversation resurfaced because of two situations: because of the Baltimore Ravens saying that they were interested, and then ultimately not signing him, and then obviously the Miami Dolphins bringing Jay Cutler out of retirement and actually signing him on, because having someone who literally said, I'm kind of done with football, is better than having an active 27-year-old quarterback come in. Now, let's be very clear about something. I want to talk about the talent aspect. I'm going to try to keep it, I'm going to water it down a little bit, because I know everyone here isn't a super sports fan, but I do want to make a few things clear. Let's just take the Baltimore Ravens, for example. The truth of the matter is, now granted, I'm not advocating for Kaepernick to start over Joe Flacco, but the truth of the matter is, Kaepernick is actually better than Joe Flacco. There's no player that has averaged fewer yardage per possession than Joe Flacco. There's only one player who's thrown more interceptions than Joe Flacco. That's Eli Manning. And of course, Eli Manning is a gunslinger. That's what he does. But he also has more touchdowns than Joe Flacco. And even Kaepernick's QBR which is his quarterback rating, is better than Joe Flacco. However, the Baltimore Ravens pretended as if it was absolutely insane for them to even consider bringing him, because some people sent some letters saying that they wouldn't go to the games. Now, these aren't even people who are like that may have a lot of money or anything like that. And they even said that some, apparently, according to the owner, that some sponsors said they were going to pull out as well. Now, once again, we'll get to the actual protest itself. It's hard for me to believe that. And it's not hard for me to believe that they would pull out, but it's hard for me to believe that that's the reason why they wouldn't sign a contentious player. Because for those of you who do not know, Greg Hardy, who has a track record of beating women, was signed by the Dallas Cowboys. Signed by the Dallas Cowboys after being released from the Panthers for the same issues. So, and this is by Jerry Jones. So the league in general was okay with signing a Greg Hardy. Obviously, Michael Vick was a felon fighting dogs, which is absolutely disgusting, considering how helpless dogs tend to be. That was fine. A year later, after he came back, he got a $100 million contract. And then obviously, as you know, he kind of underperformed going forward. I mean, Ray Lewis conspired for manslaughter and copped a plea. And he has a statue outside of Baltimore. I mean, the list goes on. There was a player who was caught bullying someone in a racist manner, and they just suspended him for a couple of games, and he was back in the starting lineup, and it wasn't even made a big deal. Ben Roethlisberger has been accused of rape multiple times, but it never becomes a big deal. All these things, because they claim it's about the image of the NFL, and it's weird that the image of the NFL is never really harmed by those who do the craziest, I mean, some like felonies. There are felons out there, okay? Felons, people and there are others who've killed people in DUI. I mean, all types of things. Now, when we get to Colin Kaepernick, and for those of you who don't remember how this all started, Colin Kaepernick originally was sitting down during the national anthem. For some reason, people say he was showboating. He was acting like a spoiled brat. He was doing this. He was doing that. It's actually not true. When he sat down, he didn't call his attention to himself. He wasn't even the starter at that time because he was actually fighting for his position because he just come off of an injury. And then the old coach and the new coach didn't think that he could fit in that system. So he's fighting for a starting position. And the press asked him why he was sitting down during the national anthem. And he actually only gave a brief response. He said, police brutality is an issue. Black people are treated like second-class citizens, etc., etc. Now, that isn't showboating. In fact, he didn't say anything. He didn't make a tweet about it on his social media before he did it. He didn't do anything of the sort. And then he did it again. He sat again, actually, the next game. And then he had a more prepared response because obviously it was becoming a big deal. They made this a big deal. The media made this a big deal. And then the owners ran with it. Now, because of though obviously that action led to a lot of other issues. There was the pigs on the socks and calling them, obviously referring to the fact that some people call police officers pigs and things like that. But then it got to the nitty gritty. We had to get to the nitty gritty. Was okay once his contract is up and he is released. Who is going to sign him? And there have been some false narratives about why he has not been signed. Like I said, I just gave you the one example of Joe Flacco, who has a worse QBR than Kaepernick. And there is the false narrative that Kaepernick is somehow just washed up. I can tell you this, and anyone can fact check this. Name one quarterback who has gone and competed in the Super Bowl and then went to a conference championship the very next year, won a conference championship, went to the Super Bowl, went back to another conference championship the very next year, and was not able to find a new team. It's never happened. Not even Rex Grossman had that issue. At least, at the very minimum, he would be on the bench. At the very minimum. Now, he is a starter. Like the statistics have come out. He's a top 15 player, a top 15 or top 20 quarterback at minimum in the league still. But some people keep thinking that he is a failure. That so the narrative that he sucks, it actually came after two things. He got injured, which tends to set people back for, especially quarterbacks who injure their shoulder. It sets them back for like a half of a year at least. But also, he was then put into a system that was not built for his talents. It actually emphasized his weaknesses instead of emphasizing his talents. Now, if anyone knows anything about football, you have to put your quarterback in a position to win. In fact, the reason, I'm a Redskins fan, unfortunately, but the reason that RG3 ended up being more unsuccessful, granted he had the big injury, but the reason he ended up being more unsuccessful is because they brought Jay Gruden in, who said, he was brought specifically to coach RG3 and create an offense for RG3 to make him successful, and he sabotaged him, put him in an offense that was not for his play style. The reason that Cam Newton is so successful is because he is put in a position to win according to his strengths, not according to his weaknesses. But nevertheless, Kaepernick did have a bad year that year. And then he was injured, and then he came back, didn't start for the first half of last season. But then after that, once he did play the last half of the season, guess what? There was only 5 players who played better than him at the quarterback position, and all of them were MVP candidates. This is a fact. You can look this up. Like I said, I don't want to get convoluted, but I'm just saying. So the narrative that he was actually worse, or especially worse than Jay Cutler, is absolutely ridiculous. Jay Cutler, there's this excuse that, everything, if you compare everything, right, if his overall career, Jay Cutler's never been to a Super Bowl. He didn't even win the conference championship. He's been to one playoffs in 11 seasons. He's only won one playoff game. He is trash. Jay Cutler, his teammates don't like him. While on the other side of that fence, and this is last year, and obviously one of his most contentious seasons, Colin Kaepernick was given the award for the best teammate. He was out of shape. Jay Cutler, for those of you who don't know, was signed to the Miami Dolphins instead of signing Colin Kaepernick, and people, are justifying this as if Jay Cutler is good. Jay Cutler is not good. They always say, well, he had his best season with this coach, and I have to swiftly remind them that his best season, the offense, was 23rd in the league, and they were 23rd in the league for passing as well. That is not what I would call the quote unquote best season. I would say that's probably his least bad season, but that doesn't mean it's his best season. It's been told time and time again by many people, and almost every commentator agrees. Jay Cutler is lazy. He does not have a passion for football, and he even exemplified that in his first press conference, saying, "Yeah, I was actually pretty content with hanging out with my family and playing with my kids, and I'm out of shape, and I didn't really want to come back, but they called me, and like he didn't care." On top of that, so that's just a Dolphins situation. With the Seahawks, the whole locker room wanted Cutler. Not Cutler. Wanted Kaepernick. Everybody wanted him. Same thing in Baltimore's locker room. Everybody wanted him. They said it's exactly what they needed to do. So it's in any of those situations, Kaepernick is being signed. He is better than every backup in the NFL, and is better than at least half of the quarterbacks in the league, especially given his play at the end of last season, or once he ended up coming in to start last season. And mind you, he was only 5 quarterbacks were better than him last year, and on top of that, he was playing with a bunch of nobodies on a horrible team. So that lets you know that Kaepernick actually still has his talent. But now we have to go a little bit deeper to figure out why it seems like this is not translating to the owners. Well, the truth of the matter is, if I as a vet sat down and protested the national anthem. But it was because, and this is a fact, obviously, the veterans do not have adequate service for their needs after they get out the military. And hell, even while they're in the military. Would I still be looked at the same way? If I said, I'm protesting this flag until this flag represents the veterans who are dying for it, would I be looked at the same way? I don't think so. Now, the flag does represent the veterans, but guess what? The flag represents every American, every United States citizen, and everyone who wants to become a United States citizen. Yes, it represents those who have died for it, but it also represents those who have lived for it. Those who represent and embody the values. We should never shame anyone for asking for equality and equity. Now, there are some who say, well, why is this a race issue? Why is this a race issue? How do we know it's not Kaepernick he just sucks? Well, we know he doesn't just suck. I've explained this to you. So then we have to look next. Well, how do we know it's about race? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear about a few things. It's already been proven time and time again that there is a huge disparity when it comes to race, and then those who get killed for no reason, those who are pulled over for no reason, those who are arrested for no reason, disparaging prison sentences that are given. And those will say, some people will say, well, look at this. There were more white people, or as many white people killed as there were black people. Let's just say all things were even. 50 black people and 50 white people were killed, because that's kind of it's kind of close to that actually this year. So like, I think out of 80 people, like it's like almost 50% black and 50% white that are killed. Yeah, that's kind of weird considering that we're only 12% of the population. And if you don't think that that's an issue, think about the fact that we occupy like 90% of the prison population. But once again, we are only 12% of the population. Black people are also leading for wrongful convictions, and we're 12% of the population. People tend to forget that there obviously will be more white people hurt by cops than black people overall. And that reason is because once race isn't there as to be used as a scapegoat for why somebody could be killed or shot or arrested or pulled over, then they go to the next best thing, which is poor people who cannot afford a lawyer and cannot afford to defend themselves. Those are who are treated. So like in West Virginia, that's a huge issue right now. I know in the Midwest, that's a huge issue. It's poor white people who are then bullied. And I'm sure that poor white people could attest to that because there are not enough of us around to pick on. But in a black community, these are still issues that are happening, and we can't just simply ignore them. Now, people will say, well, once again, why is it about race? We all can vote. We all can, we all have the same rights. Yeah, legislated for the most part, because that's not even totally true. But for the most part, we have the same rights based off the Constitution, right? Granted. But is that how psychology really works? Like, for example, everybody has rules at their job, right? Or even in the military, or just basic rules in general for life. Just because a rule exists doesn't mean people follow the rules. It doesn't mean because the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment were added that racism just disappeared. Ladies and gentlemen, less than 50 years ago, my mother, who was actually rather young for my age, would not even be able to drink at the same water fountain as white people. Less than 50 years ago. Mind you, the racist people were still there fighting for, there was a person running on trying to end desegregation. So he's trying to resegregate Barry Goldwater. I'm sure you all know about him. But think about that. Less than 50 years ago, I'm only 28 years old. And we thought that racism, which is one of the most contentious issues of our history, was going to just disappear. Ladies and gentlemen, an FBI investigation came out, and it showed that KKK has infiltrated almost every single form of authority in this country. This is a fact. to pretend that they're not. Think about this. Less than 50 years ago, segregation was ended, or around 50 years ago, depending on what state you were in. Even give it 60 years. Segregation was ended. And what? Those racist people just stopped being racist? The KKK still exists. So we know that didn't happen, right? Okay. Do those people not become teachers? Do those people not become police officers? Do those people not become judges? Do those people not become CEOs, small business owners? Do those people not become owners of the NFL? Mind you, out of all 32 teams, all of them are white. All the owners are white. We have to stop pretending. No, everything is not a race issue. Everything is not a race issue. However, there are issues that are indeed race issues. And that is not unilateral. It's not like in Ohio, police brutality may not be a race issue for most of Ohio or most of Kansas or most of Nebraska. But in Illinois, police brutality absolutely is probably a race issue. In North Carolina, police brutality is a race issue. In Alabama, police brutality probably is a race issue. Florida, maybe even California. Think about it. It's not a blanket solution. It's not a blanket problem. But to pretend it doesn't exist, to pretend that this isn't an issue of race, would be nonsensical. Now, people say often, I don't like the way he did it because it affected this. And I'm telling you, as a vet, 90% of us were not offended. Why? Because the flag doesn't only represent us. And yeah, many of us fight for the flag or fight for people who live in this country, but we also fight for the right to peacefully protest. Our country was founded upon dissent. Where people were throwing tea over the damn boats during the Boston Tea Party and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? They were looked the same way. Ali, the same thing. He refused to go to the draft. People called him a traitor. They use the same excuses. What about people aren't going to pay to see his fights? People aren't, and he was still just as popular as ever. But they kept pushing the narrative that no one wanted to see him. But there were more people who understood him than what they tried to portray. These are facts. And yet now Ali is celebrated. He's considered a hero in the civil rights movement by just refusing to do something. All Colin Kaepernick did, he didn't even, and Ali was loud about his situation. Colin Kaepernick sat down. And the same people who call Ali a hero will say Kaepernick's a traitor because he sat down during the national anthem. Mind you, this is a national anthem which the second verse is racist as hell. Look it up. Colin Kaepernick is being blackballed, and that is not correct. That is not right. And he's being made an example of. There are owners who called him a traitor. So to say it's and like I said, there are people who have committed felonies, killed people, raped people who are still in the NFL, but that wasn't a problem for them. The issue is if you celebrate, and this is reality, if you empower black people to stand up and they realize, because you got to remember, all these other people sat after Colin Kaepernick did, and none of them have been kicked off of a team, and none of them have been released from a team. All of them have gotten new contracts and secured their jobs. However, Colin Kaepernick is the one who's fired, which means he's being made an example of. Nobody was considered a traitor or what weren't called any names when anyone else did it. But when anyone else committed a crime, Colin Kaepernick committed no crimes. He had the highest jersey sales in the NFL last year. Guess what he did? Donated all to charity. He has nonprofits and charities in Africa, charities in America. He put his money where his mouth is. It wasn't just for attention, obviously. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I hope that you all are actually taking the time to step out and step back and see the reality. No, everything isn't a race issue. But this is a race issue. 70% of the NFL is black. There's already, for those of you who don't know, a side issue right now of pay in the NFL. And it's not just myself who said it. Every commentator and pundit in the sports world, black or white, as far as the talking heads, they all feel the exact same way. Even with the color thing, they tried to figure out, they're like, well, maybe it's because color. Nope. Actually, Kaepernick is better than him. Kaepernick's career has been better than him. Kaepernick is younger than him. Kaepernick has more upside than him. But they even consider Tim Tebow over Colin Kaepernick. And we're trying to pretend that Tim Tebow is better than Colin Kaepernick, even though he hasn't thrown a pass since 2012. Come on. Take the time to consider that there is some reality to what Colin Kaepernick is protesting. And remember, like I said, he didn't do this to cause a scene. The media found him. He was sitting there with his head down, not bothering anyone, not making a big spectacle about it. But they came to him. We can't keep villainizing and demonizing people who are saying, I don't like seeing even if it wasn't black. It's like I said, I'm a veteran. I don't want to be villainized for saying, just like I don't, because it is a vet issue. The way vets are treated is a vet issue. And we don't say, well, not every vet is having issues with suicide prevention. Not every vet is having issues with their pensions or getting health care. Not every vet. But people are saying, oh yeah, some blacks suffer police brutality, but not every black does. Oh, not in this area there's not police brutality, so we should ignore the police brutality in other areas? Absolutely not. Standing up for lives should be celebrated. But what we're seeing right now is that Colin Kaepernick is threatening the norm. Threatening the norm. And in this entire conversation with Colin Kaepernick, the entire conversation from the people who do dissent, they never, if ever, bring up what he was protesting. It goes back to the vets, for some reason. But most people don't even know that the NFL was paid millions of dollars to have the players come out and stand up during the national anthem as a recruiting tool. It is a PSYOP mission. It is a PSYOP mission. Please share this video. Let me know what you think. Please keep the comments in the comment section civil. Let's not have hatred. Let's have some productive conversation and discourse about this. I want to know all of your opinions. Thank you for watching, and always remember, find your balance. Peace.